Dr. Jag Sheth is Professor of Marketing at Emory University and the founder of the Sheth Foundation. A former member of the Editorial Review Board of the Academy, he currently serves as a member of the Board of Governors.
Jag, first we would like for you to know that we sincerely appreciate all that you've contributed to the marketing discipline. And I know doing these videos was really something that you started a few years ago, and it's great to have you with us today. The first question is, what spurred your interest in the marketing discipline?
My interest in marketing is totally accidental. I came to America in 1961 to do my MBA in what we used to call production management. Now we'll call it operations management. And all of a sudden I got very fascinated with psychology. In other words, in business, what matters is understanding psychology of customers, psychology of employees and other stakeholders. And suddenly I switched my major as I decided to go for my doctorate from production management, operations research to, in fact, individual and group behavior. And there, again, another fate of accident, essentially. I needed money to invite my fiancée to get married. American immigration had rule of about $400 per month you must earn to support a dependent on you. And I was on a student visa, and the university gave me only $287.50 as my monthly stipend. So I needed an extra job. And I was shopping around. My favorite professor was Bernard M. Buss, who was a giant in leadership at University of Pittsburgh. And then I found that, however, money was with John Howard, who was in the marketing discipline. And John said, I would love to work with you. And he actually gave me additional assistantship. And that's how I got into marketing, understanding psychology of consumers and customers. That's my entry into marketing, totally accidental.
I know that everyone's going to find it interesting how you got started in marketing, but what are you most proud of in your academic career?
Probably two things, and not in any priority. The first one is having the opportunity to work with very bright young people as doctoral students under me, starting at Columbia University in the 60s, but the biggest chunk being at University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana, at USC, for example, and of course at Emory University. We did not have a doctoral program when I went, so didn't get much opportunity. But overall, I have had the privilege of working with about 50 doctoral students and seeing the potential out there, working with them at very odd hours, because I have strong belief that this is like research. Rats don't sleep, so we don't sleep. It's 24/7. So we said Sunday mornings are not for research, you know. So I would deliberately invite my doctoral students on a campus town Sunday morning at about 8:30, just to see if they're really committed to research or something else. So that has been the most satisfying, to mold them, see the change, have them blossom to their potential. I think that is clearly one. The second one has been shifting the paradigm in the discipline. I was thinking about over 45, 50 years contribution, what has been somewhat unique, and the key thing has been to change the paradigm. So for example, psychology of consumers as opposed to economics of consumers, what is now called the behavioral economics, was the first thing I did. Second thing, I saw the rise of multivariate statistics, that operations research was too confining. Our data did not meet that requirement. On the other hand, multivariate statistics would be very appropriate. So I began to dabble into that myself, made some publications, and began to have that discipline that grew. The third one was international marketing, the same way. More recently has been relationship marketing. And now I'm working on a new paradigm that I think in marketing discipline would be very helpful to us, is the rise of emerging markets and its impact on marketing. In other words, it is not what marketing can do to emerging markets, but what emerging markets will change the paradigm of marketing altogether as we know it. And that's really what I think that has been very satisfying to see, that the new trend that you see, and you start something and then the others want to work and do research in that area, growing the field of the marketing discipline.
Thanks. And I know something that many people would like to know is, what do you think contributed the most to your career success?
Besides, of course, nurturing family, which is, my view, essential, including your spouse, your children, I think two external things that have helped me are one individual and one institution. The individual has been, by no question whatsoever in my mind, my own doctoral student, my own doctoral advisor, which was Professor John Howard. He was already given money by Ford Foundation to do an assessment of marketing discipline. He was given 2 years off. He was at Pittsburgh and really was first time thinking about more using the learning theory in psychology to understand how we become habituated. He just was a remarkable support for me. He is the reason why I went to Columbia University. Pittsburgh had collapsed financially. He wanted to leave, got a job offer, and in a package deal, he simply said, I would like to have Jagdish, as he called me, with me, because we had just started writing Howard theory of buyer behavior. He was remarkable in the sense that he arranged for my apartment house in New York. I had no money. He basically paid the down payment or whatever he did to the landlord, and it was a furnished apartment, as I remember. He had gone ahead of me, and then I went and joined him, and he has been instrumental in my life, throughout my life, essentially, pretty much. So clearly one as an individual. The institution has been University of Illinois. Even though I've taught at Columbia University, MIT, University of Southern California, Emory, but Illinois probably was the biggest formative age in my life, by and large. Not only the doctoral students and what we did, but shaping the institution by focusing on psychology, social psychology, psychometrics, into consumer behavior as a discipline. We had a decade of growth that was unparalleled. Institution also gave me enormous opportunity to learn how to engage into university-wide issues and challenges as a faculty member. I became part of the promotion tenure committee, so became more holistic there, rather than being just a pure researcher. I think those are the two that are most influential in who I am, what I am.
Well, I know you've been involved in the Academy of Marketing Science for many, many years. Could you tell us what role that you've played in terms of the development of the Academy of Marketing Science?
My relationship with Academy of Marketing Science goes back to its early days of formation by Harold Berkman. While he was thinking of organizing this, he called me up. It's in the 70s sometime is my memory, okay? And he simply said, I'm Harold Berkman, I'm at this university, and I'm thinking about organizing this association, help me. And I said, it's a great idea, primarily because it is primarily meant for academic scholars. Secondly, and more importantly, it is meant for younger scholars from colleges and universities that are not necessarily the top 10, top 20. It is much more inclusive organization. And I've always believed in inclusivity as my theory or a belief system by and large. That excited me quite a lot. And I got engaged into that informally in the beginning, pretty much. And then in the 90s, when we had a lot more bandwidth in the organization became very successful. Lots of people who are world-class scholars themselves began to put their time and effort in Academy of Marketing Science, including yourself, for example, but also Tom Menzer, you might remember that name, and Naresh Malhotra also, for example. There were quite a few. And they all motivated me to get more engaged with the Academy of Marketing Science. So I agreed to be nominated for the Board of Governors. And I've been on the Board of Governors for at least 2 terms, maybe 3 terms, pretty much. Then we started a Sheth Foundation, and Tom Menzer was the first president of the Sheth Foundation. So the linkage became even tighter between the Academy of Marketing Science and the Sheth Foundation. When my wife and I organized the Sheth Foundation, the 4 academic recipients were American Marketing Association, but Academy of Marketing Science, ACR, Association for Consumer Research, and AIB, Academy of International Business. So Academy of Marketing Science was one of the 4 recipient organizations, which began to create a very synergistic relationship between the Sheth Foundation and the Academy of Marketing Science. For example, we funded the magazine, the journal, the JAMS. Once it became quite big and important to invite the right editor, you had to have enough funding to support the editor, properly. So we provided that support. I think the annual award came out of the same thing. The Jagdish and Sheth Award for the best paper, came out of the same tradition. We supported the library, things. So the relationship has been very symbiotic both ways. I personally always enjoy coming to these conferences of AMS because it is very informal, very inclusive, egalitarian. You meet wonderful young people here from all over the world, which is fascinating, and you just have a good time here. I mean, you're learning, it's very academic, but also enjoying at the same time. I think is a very key distinctive characteristics of Academy of Marketing Science.
The next question I know will be extremely meaningful to many young scholars, and that is, what do you see as areas in marketing that will be extremely important in terms of future research? In other words, where do we need to focus our research in the future?
Yeah, clearly marketing is very context driven. Historically, I've analyzed that every time the context changes around marketing as a discipline and a practice, we tend to accept and adopt or discover newer theories. So when services marketing became very big field, we began to understand services marketing. Relationship marketing, the same thing when customer retention and loyalty was important. So I see 3 things emerging in the future which are very key. The first one is that impact of emerging markets. I think we have underestimated the size of countries like China and India becoming first-time consumers of everything, from cell phones to refrigerators, to washing machines, to automobiles, to motorcycles, anything. And that size will tip the balance in favor of emerging markets. That is where the growth is anyhow. And the traditional view about emerging markets is not sustainable. We have looked upon emerging markets from a colonial lens. However, emerging markets will redefine marketing. More innovation will take place in emerging markets. So if we can understand in a very different light, it's a brand new area and tremendously exciting research opportunities in the marketing field. Second area has to do with policy. I think marketing has been in policy area, your area of interest, has been much more from a compliance viewpoint, not as much from ethics viewpoint that you have emphasized. I think there are 3 areas in policy that we really need to work quite a lot and make policy as a major part of marketing discipline, rather than being on the peripheral. One has to do with inclusiveness. In other words, when you have a bottom of the pyramid, people who earn less than $2 a day income in countries like China, India, Africa, Latin America, how do we bring them into what marketing can do for them positively? How can marketing become a positive force for the society from an inclusiveness viewpoint? How can we motivate our practitioners to say it is a great business opportunity in a positive way, make them earn income at the same time while make them consume at the same time? I think there's a whole field of inclusiveness in policy we have never had an inclusiveness in the Western thinking, because we still have enormous number of disadvantaged people out there, which we have never served. So they are basically served by unorganized sector, they are served by mafia elements, for example, and marketing gets in trouble. They are served by non-legitimate professional marketers by and large. So this inclusiveness is clearly one dimension. The second dimension is that with the rise of China and India, the impact on environment will be enormous. If you think that the first industrial revolution, we made an enormous progress through technology, and we are now learning the impact of those technologies on the environment, the long-term side effects. We have not seen anything yet. And nothing will stop these two nations, neither technology, nor money, nor capital. It will be only the environment. So how can we think about sustainability? Sustainability, I think, will become not only a strategic, let's say, profit making, but I think it will become a necessity for marketing as a discipline or business in general. So sustainability, my own angle in that one is mindful consumption. If marketing is all about customer side, then we need to understand psychology of customers, and therefore how do we motivate customers to take care of themselves? How do we motivate customers, in fact, to take care of the community, to take care of the environment? How do we make them make their consumption in moderation? Why do we need to have excessive consumption? So that's that's a second major area that I think in policy would be very, very important. The third area in policy has to do with a totally unrelated area now. And that one, again, is part of the whole issue whether marketing can make a difference in the society. So I call this as purpose-driven marketing. Do brands have purpose other than product benefits or product attributes? So how do we create a purpose-driven marketing? What is the meaning to the consumers and to the employees when they do marketing activities? Do they have some sort of a higher level purpose in life? That's the third area. So purpose-driven marketing is the third area that can come in the policy area by and large. My third interest area, which I think marketing will be heavily impacted, is social media. It has just begun. Think about the impact of magazines and the newspapers from an advertising viewpoint. Then telephones, when they came along as a technology. Now, of course, television has a major impact in the way marketers have done their marketing communication, positioning, packaging. The next major area is all about social media. And social media have not only enormous reach, I mean, they can reach anytime, anywhere, but there's a lot of richness of the medium. I can do many more things with the internet than I could ever do with television, for example, or with cable. I think we have not understood the impact of social media on marketing practice and on marketing theory by and large. So those are the three big buckets I see out there as very exciting field for marketing. A nice thing in our field is that we can always be young. We can always get re-energized ourselves, pretty much. It's always something new, exciting to do, to learn.
Thanks for your insights on these areas of future research, and I'm sure that many young scholars will follow through and work on those areas because they are emerging areas. But what would you tell a young scholar about how they can be successful in the future?
Yeah, there are probably two, maybe three career-related points. The first one is that the best faculty who are very well known, whom we respect enormously, they create their own personality brand in some fashion, is that they've always stayed with one focused area of research. I'm the renegade, okay? But even if you look at my earlier career, it was tightly focused on consumer behavior. So whatever area that you are passionate about, make sure that you make a programmatic research out of that. And we have some recent scholars who have done a wonderful job in this area. The young scholars and their identities, or whether the name would be like a V. Kumar in lifetime value of a customer, or Sandy Japp, for example, in what she has done in reverse auctions, B2B marketing. I mean, these are wonderful young scholars, and my view is that I think they all, if you analyze them, had a stronger programmatic research. Second thing is that in the programmatic research, make sure that you create your own identity. It is nice to have multiple authorship papers, but people are not identified as groups. Seldom they are identified even as two-author things, Again, mine is an exception. The Howard-Sheth theory of buyer behavior that we began was identified as a Howard-Sheth theory, But it's usually one person identity. So you have to create that single individual identity. Third element of the career pathing is that just think about all those people who helped you who you are. None of us is able to make it by ourselves, does not make it by ourselves. Without proper nurturing and proper help by others, we just will not be who we are. So given that situation, it is both a great sense of gratitude that one should have, but also a sense of committing and a responsibility to contribute back. So nurture other young people, whether those are undergraduate students, those are master students, doctoral students, executives, that doesn't matter. Whatever is your passion, but make a commitment that I'm here for a purpose in life, in the marketing discipline. I'm here, in fact, to contribute to somebody else's, potential to be realized, essentially. I think that drives all of us in a very positive way. At least it gets you away from the politics in our field,
Jack, if you were going to sum up your career accomplishment in a few statements, in your case it's going to take more than a few statements, would you share with us what you believe are some of your key accomplishments?
I think if I had to summarize everything, only thing is that what has driven me to do is making a difference. Making a difference seems to be the common theme in everything that I have ended up doing. And there are three areas where there has been an impact of what I have done. One, of course, is the academic discipline, and the different paradigms that were created, from consumer behavior to multivariate statistics, in fact, to relationship marketing, to emerging markets, all that stuff. The second one is making a difference in people's lives. And I'll take a couple of minutes here. If you take a grain of wheat and make it into a loaf of bread, the value add is about 4 times. The cost of raw material is about 25%. If you take a rough diamond and polish it, a good diamond cutter with a lot of experience and wisdom probably get the brilliance out and the value add. It's just the economic value add. One can talk about non-economic value adds. Is about 20 times. But if you take a human being and polish that, mentor that, properly guide them, the market value add is infinite. There is no upper limit. And I have felt very strongly that. And I've been very, very privileged, I would say, to contribute to our lives of lots of people, both in the student bodies, executives, for example, government policy makers in many ways. So I think that second dimension is how do you contribute back to getting the human potential out, wherever that human potential is, pretty much. That's my second. I think making a difference in people's lives is what I would consider as my second contribution. The third one is making a difference in the institutions, both academic institutions, not just as a researcher and a scholar, but shaping the institution's future. Same thing, business institutions. I had the good fortune of working with many corporations and very large corporations, becoming like a one-on-one mentor and an advisor to the CEO of a $20-30 billion company. And they're very lonely because they cannot confide with anybody anymore. I also tell them they are in an ivory tower actually, because every meeting takes place in an office and all the meetings are already orchestrated by executive vice presidents who are the gatekeepers. So we get into a one-on-one dialogue and make a difference about the future of the company, sometimes the future of the industry. And a third institution that has been very exciting in last 20-25 years in my life has been shaping the nations and the future of the nations, which means working for the government, especially policy aspect of the government's future, such as the government of Singapore, for example. It's very fascinating to see how much we as marketing professionals can make a difference in the way nations can brand themselves, for example. Nations can market themselves in many ways. Nations can create policies which will encourage industries in some fashion, restructure the industries. That has been very fascinating. So those are the what I think are the contributions as I can analyze myself.
Dag, thanks for your insights on your accomplishments, but I think we're all wondering if we'll ever have another Jag Sheth, Phil Kotler, Paul Green, or Roe Alderson. Could you provide your insights on what you think we will have in terms of future leaders in the field of marketing?
In the short run, we have a significant concern that our next generation of scholars are trained in a very narrow, microscopic way. In other words, nowadays we have the requirement in doctoral programs that you start with research papers without knowing the discipline even. So you start in a very narrow field, mostly data mining in some fashion, which is good because it's a good discipline, it's very scientific, it's very appropriate. It is what happens in engineering, it's what happens in science. You are a part of a large program, you are just one cog in a big wheel, which is a professor with 20 postdocs, and 50 students. It's not good for the student though. It makes them so narrow that they have no time later on to understand the breadth. So while we are all what I would call specialists, we have to become what I also call deep generalists. You must have a curiosity about everything. You must learn the knack of connecting dots, which are not there. Most discoveries happen strictly by connecting dots. It's just there, nobody connected the dots. You connect the dot and suddenly it becomes so insightful that it's an enormous contribution to the society, not only having your own identity go up in the process. I think the discipline needs to swing back to balancing the two. Discipline has always, marketing discipline has always gone through this thing. Being in the discipline for about almost 50 years, I remember that when I started, everything was operations research. Then consumer behavior came along, right? Broaden the discipline. We are going through the same cycle, so the discipline begins to become highly specialized and then begins to become diversified back again. So I'm very optimistic that just as we produced world-class scholars in the past, we will produce the world-class scholars in the future. It's a question of timing. And hopefully, the way we reward our academic colleagues through promotion tenure decisions will encourage as much the breadth of knowledge as the depth of knowledge. Why I'm optimistic is because I had never imagined what I could do. Think about that. I'm a refugee from Burma before World War II, when Japan took over Burma, lost everything, struggled 8 years very hard. I come from a culture where education is not the focus. I'm the only one who has ever gone to college and never graduated. We are all in the business primarily. High school is enough education, and you start your own business, mostly trading, mostly being merchants. And somehow, I came to this country, I got passionate about education, and I would have been very happy back in my country, small village where we come from, earning about $400, $500, $600 a month, and will be happy because I don't know my own potential. I think it's the circumstances, it's the institutions, it's the individuals who gets your potential out. So I see many more future scholars out there waiting in the wings. They don't even know what they will do, is the point I'm trying to make, but they will be there. Just like we did not know Paul Green will be the first one to tell you. He had no idea that he will blossom so well once he left DuPont laboratory, market research lab, for example. I can give you names after names of people, such as Gerald Zaltman, who is a personal friend. I think even Phil Kotler would not have understood how much he was able to contribute, when he started his own journey. So all of us are made by our circumstances. And to that extent, I'm very optimistic that circumstances will shape and motivate individuals to be world-class contributors and scholars. Let me add one more point. I think they will not be just limited from America anymore. I think you will see world-class scholars coming from all over the world, and surprisingly more and more from emerging markets. You have to see the passion towards scholarship in China. You have to see the passion towards scholarship in marketing in India to some extent, although most Indians left India and did very well outside India. Now we think time has come for Indians to do well in India, kind of a thing, right? So I think it will become a worldwide phenomenon.
Thank you for joining us today. Your insightful comments were extremely beneficial, and I know that many people are going to enjoy hearing your comments.
Okay.